Yeah, morning. We wish to apologize to our viewers for that short break in transmission. You know, we experienced some power failure down at our studios here on Mandela Avenue. I'm your host today once again. We normally come to you on the fourth Sunday of each month. But for our viewers who always follow this program, we were unable to bring to you our program for last Sunday because of some activities that we had organized and had to execute in relation to commemorating the death anniversary of our founder leader. Since we had the last program, I had two executives of the foundation talking about the intention of the foundation to launch a mentorship scheme. We have been able to complete that exercise, and on today's program, we'll be having some excerpts on that scheme. Also with me in the studio today, I have Dr. George Norton, who is Vice Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. He's a Member of Parliament with the APNU outfit, but he has been around for quite some time. And very quietly, he has been championing the interests of Amerindians in this country. Dr. George Norton, as you know, is a very outspoken person when it comes to issues pertaining to Amerindian. And this month, as well as we have been observing Amerindian Heritage Month and also Education Month. So we'll be looking at Forbes, Burnham, and Amerindian kind of development. Forbes, Burnham, and education. And we could not have had a better person to talk on these issues other than Dr. George Norton. Dr. George Norton, I want to welcome you to this program, but we're not going to go to you right away. I want to have my operator just cue in on the excerpt from the launching of the mentorship scheme, which was done by the foundation. Then we'll come back into to Dr. Norton, and later on in the program, our viewers, you will have an opportunity to call in and perhaps make your comments, express your views, or perhaps even make some contribution in relation to views that have been expressed on this program. So I want to thank you for allowing me into your home, your kitchen, your bathroom, as well as your bedrooms to hear this program. You know, Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham is one of the greatest sons that ever walked the face of this earth. And for some people, he's the greatest person who has ever lived in the entire Caribbean. And it's no reason why, for the 20th century, the countries of the region have voted him the Caribbean man of the 20th century. So I want to ask the operator right about now to go into that excerpt on the launching of the mentorship scheme.
Logs from Pandora. But what
His worship may bring parents, special invitees, and mentees a pleasant afternoon to you all. My task is quite simple. It is to share with you what it is that we do with our young people, and to provide parents and invitees an idea of the overview of the scheme. I am going to allow the person who's going to do the feature address to give you some of the history of the scheme. But just to know that the scheme is not something new. It is just being relaunched under a different umbrella. It focuses on youth development. Specific emphasis is placed on persons who would have just completed the National Grade 6 assessment and would have entered secondary schools. For a period of 5 years, the directorate of the scheme would be working with our young people and their parents to ensure that opportunities are provided for, one, the young people to have opportunities to realize their full potential, to support parents in their role, and I must say that I think all of us on the directorate would have shared the view that nurturing and caring for our young people is not just solely the responsibility of parents. I think that would be something that is synonymous with the saying that it takes a village to raise a child, in that we as members of community and citizens of Guyana share the responsibility, or the responsibilities rather, to ensure that our young people become productive citizens of this country. The system in itself, what it does is complement the school system. So the activities that mentees will be engaged in are aimed at supporting what they do at school. Now, the services are generally provided by volunteers, in that every member of the directorate is a volunteer, as well as our facilitators are all volunteers. With our facilitators, other resource persons, and mentors, we will be working to contribute to molding our mentees. The question will be asked, how it is that we plan to do this? Now, we plan to do this in a number of ways. Firstly, by working with our mentees, and secondly, working with the parents. So, activities that we are going to be engaging our young people in, what we consider to be activities aimed at enhancing or equipping them rather with general life skills. And when we talk about general life skills, we're talking about giving them the opportunity to be able to articulate the goals that they would want to achieve later in life, building their self-esteem, trying to enhance their self-confidence, and given the fact that they're at this period of life when they are now trying to establish their own identities, we are going to be working with them to help them to articulate what it is that they would like to. We would be working with them to help them to identify the characteristics that they would like to be described as. Is it what? A productive member of society? Somebody who is trustworthy, somebody who is honest?
Yeah, there you had it. That was Mrs. Frank from the foundation giving the address to the students who will be mentored for the next 5 years during their stay at the secondary school. Part of the aim of the foundation is to help the young people who are part of the scheme to realize their full potential. Like I said earlier in the program, on today's program, we'll be looking at Burnham and Amerindians, Burnham and education. We have just completed Amerindian Heritage Month as well as Education Month. With me in the studio today is Dr. George Norton. Dr. Norton, once again, welcome down to this program. I want to start by saying, sometimes when you listen to programs organized by the government, you get the impression that only since 1992, then the interests of Amerindians were taken on board in this country. You have been around. I know you have been doing some work in Amerindian communities. You have been representing their interests in a very sterling way all over this country. I would like you to comment on that view, because that is a view that is very prominent out there.
Thank you very much, televiewers. And let me first of all say to my fellow Amerindians, I do hope that they enjoy the Heritage Month, and some might still be in celebration mood on to today, because we're still not at the end of the month. Now, it is a fact that what you have just said, and only recently we had a situation where the highest authority in the land is saying to the nation that Amerindian development, the the clock stops ticking at the 1964 and only start ticking again in 1992. How far from the truth that can be. If there was any development, and if we're looking at what is there for all to see, the track record, so much happened for Amerindian development during the PNC rule, and particularly during the Forbes Burnham stewardship. Before I go, let me just say how impressed and emotional I am, because I attended the award ceremony for the Burnham Educational Scholarship Trust bursary, which was only recently given out to one sixth grade student from each one of the region, and this is the second year. And when I looked and I saw who it was that we had from Region 1, who it was that we had from Region 9, who it was that we had from Region 8, I mean, to be saying that nothing is being done, nothing was done, and we know that it's a direct follow-up the Burnham Foundation is doing in trying to project exactly what Burnham wanted during his lifetime, and particularly for the development of this country, that there is sufficient evidence.
I want to just comment at this point, because there are a few areas particularly that I would have liked you to address, because I seem to recall from the inception, even at the launching, when we were about to get our independence, part of the independence agreement with Britain, with Great Britain, or in London, was that the interests of Amerindians were taken on board in terms of the project execution for development of Guyana. It was part of the agreement that the interests and welfare of Amerindians were part and parcel of the development program.
That is so true, and it must be said for all to know that this whole thing about Amerindian land entitlement and demarcation is not something that the PPP invented, or was only happening during the PPP regime, or as the president would want to say, since after 1992. Since 1967, the Amerindian Lands Commission was established.
Okay.
And we had representation by Amerindians, chosen by the Amerindians themselves. The late Morris Bennett from the Kabakoburi Mission, he was the Amerindian representative on the Amerindian Lands Commission. And that commission did a thorough job, went to all the villages and came up with a report. And right now, what we're finding is that the lands that are given out to the different villages are not in accordance with what that report presented. And that is where the conflict is coming. We still have problems with Amerindians and their lands because they're not following that thorough, let's say, investigation that commission had. And we're running into difficulties. But let us go back a little further than that. One must remember that in 1957 to 1964, a government was in power, but nothing was done for Amerindians. Who was in charge of that government? It was the PPP. We must remember what happened to the Upper Mazruni Amerindian Reservation when diamond was found at Ibamadai with a stroke of a pen. That reservation was divided, was slashed in half, and it was the PPP then. It was Forbes Burnham when the PNC got into power that established the Amerindian Lands Commission, did an investigation, and started with land entitlement. Because we had serious situations happening, serious occurrences happening in this country, where persons thought that a quarter of this country belonged to them, to families, and none would have belonged to Amerindians. And it was a situation that had to change. It was a situation where we know for a fact that Amerindians were sold enamel buckets in exchange for a cattle, where they were made to work as vaqueros for all of the rounding up season and only to be given a pair of a change of clothes and so on. That situation, Burnham happened to make a change, and he corrected those situations. And you know, for the first time in the history of Guyana, Amerindians were brought down to Georgetown to tell the government and the ministers, and along with the Prime Minister, them what they wanted, because it was encouraged by Forbes Burnham, what they wanted to see happen to their village in terms of development. And Mr. Burnham made no qualms about telling them, we want to hear from you. We're not here to tell you what is good for your village. We want you to tell us what you want.
Yeah, I wanna go because Forbes Burnham, the approach to development of this country included, like you rightly said, our Armenian brothers and sisters. And since we're in the month of education, which is about to come to an end, I want you to address this idea of Forbes Burnham and education for Amerindian people in this country. I know that there were scholarship programs and so on that were being executed under the PNC government. Could you tell our viewers how that program came into being and how successful it was?
Well, actually, what you had, and this was from Burnham himself, and he said it to the Amerindians since as early as 1968. He said that the schools on the coast should be equal to the schools in the hinterland. They should be on par. He was saying the health services that you enjoy on the coast, that persons in the hinterland should enjoy it as well. And that was his idea. As a matter of fact, he openly said that it was his personal opinion that developing the hinterland, the interior of this country, would benefit the country as a whole more than developing the coast. Mm-hmm. And that is a very, very strong statement to make where Amerindian development is concerned, because they are more concentrated in the interior location. But while we might have come in, that is the PNC would have come into government and reached a hinterland scholarship program, we know what it is to bring these students out from the interior into the coastland or into Georgetown with the change of culture, the change of lifestyle, language, everything. And Burnham went further and started developing secondary schools into these
the hinterland.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but I can tell you, as early as in 1968, we already had Amerindian students from the Rupununi going to study ranching in the United States of America. And in 1969, there were 4 of them, from right across, from Mokomoko to Karasabai to Aishat, what's the name, to Patarnau, and from Upakari. You had Amerindians going over to the United States to study. Of course, they were coming more down to Georgetown as well. We had them participating in the Monrepo Agriculture School, in the Teachers Training College, in the Government Technical Institute. We had them not only at the secondary school, and when I say secondary school, I mean Queen's College, Bishops, and the schools and so on. Of course, later down they went to President's College, which of course was one of the top schools then, and they increased in numbers.
But I remember, I seem to recall that even the late Dr. Desiree Fox, who happens to be a relative of mine, she told me personally she benefited from policies and programs like those while she was growing up at Ramadan.
But it's not only Desiree Fox. Practically, all Amerindians beyond a certain age, especially those who are involved in politics now, benefited directly from the PNC government. Programs, definitely. If they didn't get the hinterland scholarship, they probably got some other means of whatever there was to offer. And some of them might have even been strong members of the PNC, and for some reason or other they might have left. But the records are there to show that the PNC government, under Forbes Burnham in particular, did quite a lot for education of the Amerindian people. And
also their integration in the society. I worked in the interior for a number of years, and I seem to recall that there was a direct policy. In fact, I seem to recall that there were persons who were prosecuted for violating some of the rules that govern the use of alcohol in Amerindian communities. Because at one time people used to think that you can go to the Amerindian community and do as you like. And because of the policy that Burnham introduced, when you had men like Cecil McCashley and those men who were responsible for interior development and so on, the development officers, you had to get kind of permission as a coastlander to go to these areas. And those things, even though his overall program was integration, he sought to put in place the kind of mechanism that would protect them from people taking advantage of their inexperience or underexposure to the situation on the coast. So those are all kind of policies that he put in place to make sure that our Amerindian brothers and sisters were integrated gradually into the fabric of the Guyanese and the society. And you yourself has been an example, testimony to those programs yourself, having studied abroad.
But let me go back to this whole question of trafficking in persons. We hear that, one minister describing the North American report of trafficking in persons in Guyana as being crap, whatever that word means, and the government doubting whatever about the
claims that are made.
Right. I am going to say to the nation that trafficking in persons does not necessarily only means taking a person from the coastland and taking them for exploitation sexually in the interior. Trafficking in persons does not only entail that at all. Only recently we had a call from some Amerindian men from Wakapau who were taken by an employer into a location to cut walrus poles. And after they started working, then he said to them, "You are working for this amount of money." And they were saying, "Under no conditions we can work for that." But he had them there under duress. They could have only left if they were prepared to work for about 4 days. Okay, and they were practically isolated there with hardly any food or so on. They had to climb a tree in order to get signal to make the phone call to us. And this happened recently, and from that was somebody here. Now, according to the United Nations definition of trafficking in person, that qualifies for it.
For trafficking in persons.
But let's go back to the sensitive one. We had Amerindian mothers coming out to Georgetown, coming out to the coast and our different meetings of Amerindian associations and telling us that while the young ladies from the coast will come and they might be exploited, whether it's sexually or not, the Amerindian girls from the village itself, where the actual mining is going on, the same thing happens to them. The only difference is that while some are working for gold, the Amerindians seem not to be working for anything. Some of them, according to one, this is an Amerindian leader, a female leader, saying to us, all the girls go home with is a pack of biscuits and probably a Coca-Cola drink and something like that. And we haven't seen or heard not one Amerindian girl so far being rescued, as though nothing is happening. And I say this because I know for a fact that that is the wrong impression. That is only the coastlanders are victims of trafficking in person. Just moving from one village to go into a mining area, whether it's from the interior or not, is also trafficking in person.
I seem to recall that Forbes Burnham coming into power, taking on board, I seem to remember a statement he made, and I think I asked you about that while we were talking a little earlier this morning. I don't know if I can find it, but it's an interesting statement that I had drawn to your attention. And I wanted to just share that. I wanted to share that with our viewers. This is a speech that Burnham gave. And he said that at that time, he said, "We do not want any government in Guyana to be making a play about Amerindian development and Amerindian welfare, separating the Amerindians from the rest of the community. They must be brought into the whole community, and therefore we will not have an Amerindian Development Committee. We will have an Interior Development Committee, which naturally must take care of the rights and interests of all the people who dwell and live in the interior. and it must follow as the night the day that the Amerindians' welfare interests will be taken care of under the aegis of the Interior Development Committee. That's a very strong...
It is a strong statement, and I must say that, you know, thanks to Forbes Burnham, we had Amerindian leaders taking up their rightful role. Persons like Abel Doric from Upakari, persons like Kenneth Melville from Camarang, like John Ferreira from Maruka. Those were Amerindian leaders who, for us Amerindians, meant a lot. It's so important to all of Guyana. But it's good for us to hear, you know, that J.K. Thomas from Waramadong is the vice chairman of a region. It makes Amerindians feel that, yes, we are part of this thing. When Philip Duncan was made a minister, it meant a lot to us, you know, and I remember he was the first Guyanese Amerindian to ever visited in the 28th session of the United Nations as a part of Guyanese delegation. That's Philip Duncan.
He was Amerindian minister, yes.
Yeah, he was there with part of Guyanese delegation to the United Nations as a young politician then, and that was the kind of approach Burnham had towards Amerindians, and you know, he had confidence in them, and I must tell you this, that they respected him, and it was said in one of the closing address that the goodwill of the Amerindians towards the rest of Guyana was enhanced by that conference they had at Queen's College, where the Prime Minister then, Forbes Burnham, met with the captain and councillors of the Amerindian villages.
I want to go across to education, because Forbes Burnham placed a lot of emphasis on the holistic development, especially our young people in this country. Education for him was the cornerstone of taking us out of the existing situation at the time. And I seem to recall, not like today, the children of our primary schools have not been measuring up to what obtains then, because children of primary school in that time would have been able to address some very major issues. They could have been able to read and matriculate properly compared to today. And I know that schools in the interior, Mabruma Primary School and other primary schools at Waramadong and in Region 9, children, young girls and boys coming out of those primary schools then were equivalent to children coming out from other senior primary schools in Georgetown and were able to get places at Bishops and Queens and so on. Burnham, in my view, articulated a policy to make sure that these things were kind of realized not only on the coastline but in Amerindian areas as well. I would like you to comment on that.
Well, first of all, you know, it was so. I was so happy to hear Burnham actually saying that he was pleased that Amerindian leaders were crying out for more education and to be more trained, because he himself says that there is no way that you can develop a country without training your citizens, and in today's age, this is Burnham words, becoming more au fait with the development of technology. Now, this is what Burnham was saying to Amerindians, that in order for us to develop countries, this country, we have to train you. We want you to be more educated. And that is what he set out to do. Mm-hmm. But Burnham himself is somebody who I, as a young person, when I was growing up, I used to look up to. I mean, somehow one gets the impression that today anybody can become the president. You know, somehow you get the impression that it doesn't matter. I used to listen to Burnham to hear the correct pronunciation of certain words. I mean, he was so articulate. His vocabulary was, you know, endless. And it was a pleasure just listening to his speech.
Well, you're not alone in that, because a number of people, including myself.
The point is what we have today. You know, what we have today. Some of us are using the gerund like if it's, you know, like it's the most important part of the speech. It really is a far cry from where we were during the Burnham days. But why is that so? Is because Burnham has, you know, in no uncertain term, he attained some remarkable academic standards. I mean, as early as in 1939, he had the Percival Expedition Award, and in 1942 he got the British Guyana Scholarship.
Yes.
I mean, I went to Queen's College, and every time I walk down that auditorium and I see LFS Burnham on that wall written there, you know, it was an inspiration. Of course, you had Eddie Robinson and Farrell Wills and all the others and so on, but the LFS Burnham there, you know, he won the Guyana Scholar. And what's interesting is that I remember one minister in the PPP government says, there's no such thing as Guyana Scholarship. You know, whether that might have been so or not, everybody at Queen's College in my days were working towards getting a Guyana Scholarship.
Attaining that level.
Yeah, it might have been 3 or 4 of you, but somewhere along the line, every time you think about your A-levels result, you're thinking about that. And Burnham had it to show. So not only was he a Guyana scholar, but in 1944, for instance, he got this Bachelor of Arts degree. And then in 1948, he got the Bachelor of Law and went into the London Bar. So he was somebody for us to look up to. And fortunately for us, he was the first Minister of Education in 1953 under the first election of adult suffrage. You know, so when you start thinking about Burnham, and it's important for us to know this, because he's somebody who we must aspire to be, to look up to. You know, he's a role model.
In the area of education, he was definitely outstanding for Guyana.
There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. And what we have today, that's it. We got a minister who is being referred to as first day disarray, because that is what this country has come to. First day disarray means what? Your first day of the school year, the school is in disarray. If the toilet's not functioning, then there is no learning material, the environment is unkept, the school is in a decrepitancy, you know, everything is happening here on your first day as though you had no time along to do it. And then what happened? You blaming the opposition coming from the highest level for the different protests. Those protests are spontaneous. If APNU can cause that wave of protest that has happened in this September month, APNU, I am proud to be part of it, because they have to be so effective. But I want to tell the nation that those things happen spontaneously. APNU Member of Parliament might have been in certain schools, like in the Perica Salem area, where Mr. Sharma was there, but he was invited by the parents. They didn't go and stir up anything. And it's not only at it is not only, let's say, in St. Rose's and St. Angela's the next door that you have protests. You have it all over the country. I mean, over in recent times, you had protests in St. Ignatius. You know, if you don't have it in West Hope, you have it in Enmore. If you don't have it in Golden Grove, you have it in Anse Grove. You know, if you don't have it at Parfait Harmony, so it's protests all over. And you know, somewhere along the line, somebody is blaming the opposition for that. It has become, and you know, they said it. It as protest now is looking as though it has become a part of the school curriculum. You know, that is what we've come to. We do not have our priorities right. We do not have our priorities right in this country, and parents have said it to us. You're building a fancy hotel, why you don't build a school for our children? You know, that's what they're saying. What the parents didn't know is that fancy hotel that is being built, nobody asked us permission to spend our money to build it. You know, and now we're seeing what is happening. So the big problem in education is that we don't have it, our priorities right. So the name of First Day Disarray fits the minister.
First Day Disarray, that's a new description.
Yeah.
I wanna just ask you, when you compare these various hiccups in our system of education now to then, I know then we had problems in terms of our foreign exchange levels and so on, to cover a lot of programs that were introduced by Forbes Burnham then, but we never had these kind of, and the quality of students coming out of the primary school then, in my view, what is your view on that then compared to now?
Well, what is surprising, we saw the newspaper with photographs of the children who, congratulations to them. I must let you know that my cousin's daughter topped the country in the grade 6 examination. Congratulations to them. But among those 17,000 that wrote, 10,000 failed all 4 subjects.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to them? Their names won't be in the newspapers, but they what? They're falling into the none left behind or something to that. What is happening to them? Okay?
I want to just tell our viewers that I'm going to be opening the lines if you want to make a comments, because we're leaving at 11:30. So if you have any comments to make in relation to this program, Burnham and Amerindians, Burnham and education. Burnham and Amerindians in Education Month. That is our theme. Burnham and Amerindians in Education Month. That is our topic today. So if you're interested, you can give us a call, make your comments, make your contribution to this program.
I
Yes,
just want to
Dr.
make
Norton.
one other comment. Is when persons must see. I probably can drive a car, and obviously Burnham can drive a car, but I saw him on a bulldozer when the sun was turning for the University of Ghana. That is a picture that I admire. There it is, our Prime Minister there on this bulldozer, turning this for the building of the University of Ghana. It just shows where he was going towards education. Of course, the Sir Potter's College of Education he also built, and the President's College was there for all to see.
I see a call is coming through. Morning, you're on here.
Morning.
Yes, sir.
The gold standard for education in this country was designed by Burnham, the multilateral schools.
Yes.
If the multilateral schools were in place, then everything else would have had to follow. To go to the multilateral schools, this fabled notion that the government is giving of universal primary education is nonsense, because most or all of the people in universal primary education would have almost the similar type of education. And so we won't have 10,000 failure in grade 6 assessment. So here what they do. Screw up the multilateral school system, screw up President College, and then so that only people who can pay a lot of money and everything else, so you get 5,000 or 4,000 of them go in and they say, well, we have universal primary education system. So if you kill the main gold standard, then you have to lessen the standard all the way down.
Okay.
So Burnham was brilliant in putting that stopgap there for multilateral school system. Now here what's happening. In all the high schools in Georgetown, there were 13 places for technical education. Now they ain't got none.
Okay.
13 places in the 70s. Now you have none. So here what you got to do now. Because of negligence, you're failing the students. Students don't fail, we fail to provide them with the things that are necessary for them to make progress.
I like that point.
So we are failing the students. Then, after they fail, they're out of school for 3 years or 4 years, you send them to a so-called technical school where they graduate and still can't read and write. So you're creating monsters on the road. They need to do a system that is called feedback in education. They got a thing called feedback. Find out if all you're doing over the years was right or wrong. So the whole system, because they've neglected what Burnham has put in, is screwing up, and they're too ashamed to go back to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming through. Yeah, Dr. Norton.
Recently we were in Shelton, and I remember I was talking to Amerindians, my fellow Amerindians at the Heritage Month celebration one year, when I said, we must stop this mendigancy thing of begging. Of course, I was taken to the cross by the authorities for saying so, because the president then said, Amerindians don't beg, it's the people on the coast that beg. Of course, he had just visited Boston, so he probably was talking from I don't know what authority. But I would take back that statement. You know why? Because when we were in Shelton, the teacher in Shelton was saying, please, could you send us some chalk? Could you send us some exercise book? Could you send us some cardboard? This is Shelton. This is an Amerindian.
I see a lot of calls coming through. The callers are gone. Yes.
So what it means that those persons who are there in that interior community don't have access to this, to these basic things that you need. Chalk. Yeah?
Morning, you're on the air.
Yes, and a blessed morning to you.
We are morning.
I'm just calling. It's a big shame with the government how they get this country going. But the point is, this is education, and I want to know how much or how many of them in the government children are going to private school and why. And I want to know if, because I'm hearing out of the grapevine that the government, the education minister, children are going to private school and why. She should have got them into the that the other children where they are going.
Well, thank you. That's I don't have the numbers, but I myself has been party to that information where you have children of not only the ministers of the government, senior functionaries in the government system don't send their children to the public schools, that is the government schools. They go to private schools, but the numbers I don't have. But that was a situation that was unheard of during the time of the PNC government. I see the lines are going here once again. Morning, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning to you two gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
One of the problems, I hear you talk about education, but one of the problems I look at these schools, interland school, especially secondary school, the quality of food these children are getting. And
what you said? The quality of food?
Food, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want to study and study hard, you have to get proper food to eat and at a good time. Because I was there a couple of days back and they were serving food at 1 o'clock. And the children had to hurry and eat, then get back to the classroom. So they don't have enough time. And the food was pretty bad. Right? So I would like to the MP to raise these the minister.
Thank you very much,
Well,
Scott.
I have Dr. Norton here. Surely
Thank
will.
you very much.
Yes, Mr. Norton. I know Mr. Norton.
You know, the thing about this is that the minister will deny it. Like they denied that the boys were, the students were fetching wood, you know, and that is a photo opportunity. How wicked somebody can ever be to make that a photo opportunity of seeing school children with their uniform with lugs across their shoulders, you know, and they're saying that's a photo opportunity. The reality is that they have never been in those areas. They don't know what is going on. You know, they talk about a hot meal. What is the meal? Is it hot? You know, and it reminds you every day of George Orwell's An Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but
some more equal than
not. Because it doesn't only go in the education system. And I agree with the caller when she said that the minister's children don't go to the public school, but as well as in the hospitals. They don't go to the public hospitals. As a matter of fact, they don't even receive treatment locally. This is regardless of whether they have a...
Morning. What are you on here?
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, I am calling...
Could you speak a little louder?
All right. I'm calling concerning the riverine areas, the schools in the riverine areas.
The schools in the riverine areas?
Yes.
Yes.
I want to know if those persons and parents and children there don't have a life too. Because you find that the outside schools are getting stuff of children in there who lack attention and needs and so on. For example, if you have children who would have written the grade 9 exams, they would have gotten schools, secondary schools outside. But then the parents cannot afford to send them out. What become of those children? Their lives are finished at grade 9.
Well, that's exactly what Dr. Norton was saying. The whole system of education for our young people, our children, seem to be in disarray.
Yeah, and you have children who can read, who can work, and they're in those areas and they cannot come out to go to school because of finance. You know, they don't have family outside that they could stay by. You know? So I think that something should be done. You have children in there with medical problems, and nobody seems to like care and going in and so on. Children in there, they have life. People in there, they're humans.
They're Guyanese, most of all.
And just as how it is out here, you know, it should be the same in there. They should look into things like that. And as the caller earlier said, you find most of these ministers and the big one in authority, all of their children are going to private school. Even the teachers are sending their children to private school. Why? Why?
All right, thank you. Dr. Norton, you know, I'm from a reverend community. And I recall that's long before we had free education in this country. Forbes Burnham policy of free education. I went to high school when people had to pay for school fees. And if coming on to the end of the term you didn't have your school fee, you couldn't write the test. Those were the days when a lot of the schools were church schools. I attended a church school, but I originate from a reverend community. But the level of teaching there was so good that when I came to Georgetown to go to high school, I never go into Form 1. I went straight into Form 2. Now the point is, but when Burnham policy of providing opportunities for the children like the one that the lady was just talking about came into being, free education for everyone, it revolutionized, in fact, it transformed the whole education landscape of this country for children who had no opportunity to go to secondary school in town or even to go to the university. I was able to move on and go to the level of the university. And that was direct as a result of what you call a transformative policy decision in education. Morning, you're on the air.
Yes, sir.
Could you take down your telephone?
2 quick points, right?
Yes.
1, these last couple minutes cut yourself and entertain more calls. And 2, I go to Moderator Secondary School in the days of Barrington Ward, who was the regional chairman of there.
I think I know you too.
I got a scholarship for Region 1 and the Burnham government. So I ain't got time with what all of them saying. Right now, the president and all of them children go in private school, Burnham children go St. Margaret's government school. Later.
Thank you. So I'm saying that policy revolutionized the system, and you had children from in reverend areas like me who were able to come to town, go to high school, and got on up the level of the university and came out. But now you don't have that quality of teaching going on at this time.
I want to bring to the nation's attention a situation where in the Aruka River there is a place known as...
Let me take this out of call because the viewers are... Yes, you're on here.
Yes, sir. I was one of the Burnham times. And I got a 50-year and a 40-year going to public schools. And I think they're going to some very good public schools. You understand? But it's all in the children. I went to the school Monday for one of my sons because I seen some, things that I don't like. And I heard some things in the school. And with the mother, the headmistress tell him not to come to school tomorrow with his hair like that. And he's preaching and saying that the teacher, the headmistress is biased towards him and all these kinds of nonsense. You understand what I'm saying? So it's all about the family. It ain't nothing to do with the school boss. The teachers is trying to do their best. It's about the children and their families who dealing with them. It's all about them. I live by a school. And if you hear what some young women going on with, they have a BlackBerry in their hand. And if you see what they got, what they're looking at on the BlackBerry, our time was different time to these children.
Yeah, I agree with you that the family has an important, is the first socialization unit of development. So that the family do have an important role to play. But I'm saying as a result of the environment have to be created to facilitate.
The environment today is different. If you see what these children, if you see what they're showing one another on the phone. I remember when I was a youngster and your father got a Playboy magazine, you had to sneak to look at it. They have it in their hands. They have it in their hands every day.
All right. Thanks for calling. Yes, Doc.
Yes, these little children have to paddle to school in a Creole, and they have to leave their home at 6 o'clock in the morning. They paddle down to the school, and they have to paddle back home, and they reach back home at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. Now, they have been doing this ever since they know themselves. Their parents did it, and they're doing it. It so happened that a boat was provided for this transportation. But according to the villagers, the results of the election showed that they voted in a different, in contrary to the government's favor. And the transportation was taken away from the village. This is what was pointed out to us. For no, there's no reason for these people to be saying, not to be...
to misrepresent the truth. I think our time is fast up, but I'll take another call. Yes, you're on here.
Hello?
Yes, you're on here, sir.
Look, this is not the first time I've observed this. Who wrote the topic Burnham and education?
I didn't get that.
Who wrote the topic Burnham and education? The word Burnham is B-U-R-N-A-M.
No, well,
that's what I'm telling you. I'm looking at it.
Yes, and you're right.
And I'm right. Of course, I'm right.
Well, I didn't. That's
talking of education.
That's the operator.
Nonsense is that.
That's the operator.
Well, get rid of him.
Yeah, no, I can't. I'm just hosting a program.
I don't mean it that way.
Huh?
Oh, you must
I understand what you're saying.
Some people to check this nonsense.
I understand what you're saying. Persons like me who came up in the Burnham era wouldn't make those kind of fundamental mistakes.
Talking about education,
yes.
B-U-R-N-A-M.
R-N-H-A-M. But he should have it correct. You see, Forbes Burnham, it's Amerindian Heritage Month, Burnham and Education.
Make my point, please.
Yes, I understand you. Thank you, sir.
Before it goes on television, you should look at all these things before it goes, because it reflects badly on you guys.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I'm talking about education.
Thanks for that observation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
Yes, Doc, our time is fast going. And if my operator is with me, we had lost a minute, but so I want to give you a minute or two to just run off your comments. I see but the lines are going. Just before you start, let me take this other call. Yeah, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning.
Yes, morning.
The word Burnham, that is so good of that
caller.
Caller.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
And with the
yes. Yeah, Doc. Our time is fast going, so I want to just wrap up now, Doc.
What I am appealing for is that, when the government officials are addressing Amerindians, they must realize that persons out there are now much more informed than they ever were. And you can't stand up to address Amerindians and their relatives and their friends and their families and making broad statements like, we have malaria under control, when the families of those persons in your audience are dying because of malaria. And we have snake bite cure all over this country, and their relatives, their father, their uncle, their brother is dying from snake bite in this country because you look bad in their eyes because you're not being accurate.
All right. I want to thank you, Dr. Norton, for being with me on this program today, and to our viewers. I would like to take this opportunity to invite you once again to the 4th Sunday of this month, next month, when we will have another program, The State of the Nation. Today we have discussed Amerindian heritage, Forbes Burnham and education, Forbes Burnham and Amerindians. So thanks to our callers, those who have called in and kind of comment. I want to take this opportunity to thank you and see you next time, the 4th Sunday of October, when we'll have another program once again, The State of the Nation. I'm your host, Clayton Hinds.